Hello everybody, welcome to an unboxing video courtesy Team Covenant. Includes Robert and myself. We are, as they say, the White Council meeting.
Who has ever said that?
Meeting.
Who has ever said
yet
that?
Again to decide whether or not you should buy these cards. Spoiler alert, the answer is yes.
TLDR,
this
you should.
pack is probably the best one that I've seen in a good long while. And I'm not exaggerating, am I?
No. Well, I mean, only you can know.
You know me well enough.
Tell the truth.
And you know the cards well enough to know that this package of things, I looked at every one of these cards and I thought to myself, nice.
Mm-hmm. Every single one of them is nice.
Every one of them is like, nice.
Yeah,
it's like, don't know
nice.
if I'll use it, but nice.
Nice.
So, let's take a look at the niceness. Let's start out with Caliburn.
Caliburn.
You're an elf guy.
I'm an elf guy.
11 threat to start with. Pretty standard for a decent hero.
Pretty standard.
3 willpower, 2 attack, 2 defense, 4 hit points, and a Sylvan and a Noble, which is always great to see. Response: after a Sylvan ally enters play, that ally gets +1 willpower, +1 attack, and +1 defense till the end of the round. That is
what more could you ask
just
for?
a cool ability. His stat line is solid, and then this ability, we haven't really seen the way that it can be abused yet, but this is obviously a theme setup happening.
Yeah,
and I think if anyone's going to get the bouncy theme, the Sylvan folk, Sylvan elves,
sure.
It just makes so much sense. Mobile, hidden, secretive.
Yeah. They're
Perfect.
here, they're not here, they're going places, they're not going places. Yeah, makes total sense.
What can you tell us about Caliburn as a dude in Lord of the Rings? Or an elf, I should say.
Caliburn, he's a super ancient elf. He's been around since the First Age, and saying that for particularly a Sylvan elf is really something. So he's married to Galadriel. He's reckoned amongst the wise. That's a term that's thrown around there. So he's in the White Council, at least on its periphery. So he's just an awesome dude.
He's an awesome elf.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, that actually is shown very well with his stat line and his ability.
And also the art is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
We would be doing a great disservice not mentioning how good this, yet again, Magali art.
Thank you, Magali.
Thank you.
You have done well. Well, let's move on to the Nath Guide.
Nath Guide, coming up.
2 cost, 1 willpower, 1 attack, 0 defense, 1 hit point. Not lighting the world on fire here. But a Sylvan and a Scout. Has the response: after Nath Guide enters play, choose a hero. That hero does not exhaust a quest this round.
What do you say now?
I say this is phenomenal.
This is phenomenal.
This card by itself is good. Just getting a non-exhausting hero is fantastic. An extra 2 to 3 quests out of nowhere that character can then fight, especially on someone like Caliburn. Obviously great, right?
Yeah, totally.
So that's worth 2, and then you have a body too. Unfortunately, because she's very beautiful, but you would throw her in the way of a mean enemy that just needs to be soaked up.
That's true.
Which is sad. But she doesn't mind. She's probably okay with the noble.
She already showed you where you were going, and she'll die later.
Yeah,
that's fine.
It's fine.
That's fine.
But then on top of that, obviously you have a synergy here with Caliburn. So
immediate synergy.
She enters play. You choose Caliburn. He doesn't exhaust to attack, and then this Sylvan ally enters play. Or I'm sorry, to quest, and then she gets +1 to all of her stats, making her a 2 quester, which is probably what we're going to use her for. But also a 2 attack, 1 defense slugger.
Yeah, I mean there could be like some pesky gnats that you need to block, and she can do it then.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I feel like obvious synergy. Both of these cards are good on their own, and they're very, very good together.
Yeah, totally.
So I really do like that design, but I don't feel like they're too good together. They're just really good together.
Yeah, they're very good together. And again, another Magali art looking fantastic.
You can't deny it.
If it's an elf, she'll do the art.
Yeah.
Thank you, Magali. We appreciate it.
Well, tell me about Swift and Silent.
Swift and Silent.
Tell us, I should say.
Yes, everyone. It is a leadership event. It costs 1, and it says, action, ready a hero you control. Then, if your threat is 20 or less, and this is the first time you play a copy of Swift and Silent this round, return this card to your hand instead of discarding it.
Yes.
Pretty amazing.
Yes.
If your leadership secrecy, it doesn't get too much better than this.
It doesn't get better. No, and imagine we're just leadership.
Yeah, totally.
1 cost, ready any hero you control.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I would put 3 of those in my deck. Like that is an ability that is genuinely useful most all of the time. And it can save your bacon. It's like, I'm going to quest all my dudes, and I'm going to hold 1 resource, because sometimes you hold 1 anyway.
Yep.
And then it's like, okay, if combat gets really sketchy, like if we get encounter deck destroyed, I can stand one of these heroes up and take a defender, take an attack. So it's good alone, but the ability to recur this every turn if you wanted to in a secrecy deck
is bad.
I think it's excellent. You know, we've seen a lot of playing around with secrecy.
Yeah.
But we're actually now seeing the big guns.
It's serious business now.
For secrecy.
Suddenly. Yeah, this cycle it's going to get really awesome.
And the theme here, the theme here is brilliant. It's like if you're running secrecy, you're swift and silent every turn.
Every turn.
If you want it. And elves running secrecy, come on, it's so good. And the art, while a little bit confusing at first look, is also very good. It's like, is that a shadow of an elf with another elf in front of it?
Yeah.
Or is that a full elf just with a dark cloak on?
It's hard to
I still am not quite sure, which I think is kind of an illusion, an art illusion going on here to really get across the point.
At least it's not an art illusion.
Being swift and silent. So, very cool. Obviously in some kind of bomb forest.
Oh, sure.
Made of gold and, I don't know, obelisks. I guess those are trees.
Lothlorien. But what's particularly good about this
Lothlorien.
is I find, and you might have found the same, because whenever I'm questing, I feel like some of the most irritating and powerful things that can come your way in terms of really scuttling your plans are things that are going to exhaust your characters, particularly your heroes, or something that's going to let a baddie get an extra attack off.
True.
So if you have a card like this, in addition to mainstays like Crom and Unexpected Courage, but then recurring this, it's like, oh wait, in a pinch, I've got that character back that I either had just taken away from me, or I just suddenly need somebody extra doing something, whatever it happens to be. I love this thing.
And it's any hero you control too. So like even all draw 2 cards. You know? Homegirl who I was playing with the other day. Yeah, that's great. She's great for this, actually.
She is great for this.
It's like you draw 2, and if I need her, I can pull her back up, because she's pretty solid stats, or I can pull her back up and you can draw 2 more.
Exactly. Well, they cap that.
Oh, they do cap it.
Yeah.
That's true.
Wah, wah.
You can't abuse this game nearly as hard as you want to sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Firefoot.
Firefoot
is a 2-cost mount from the Tactics faction.
First, check his feet.
Yeah, it looks good.
They're not quite fiery, but
well,
they're kind of shiny.
Glowing.
They're catching some light.
Well. Attached to a Tactics or Rohan hero, it is restricted. Attached hero gets +1 attack or +2 attack if it's Aomer, which is, I mean, come on.
What does that tell you about this unique horse?
It tells me that Aomer likes it.
There you go.
It's probably his horse. And it says, response, after attached hero attacks alone, exhaust Firefoot to choose a non-unique enemy engaged with you. Excess damage dealt by this attack is assigned to the chosen enemy. This is much, much better than I thought it was at first, because that damage goes past the defense.
Past defense, yep.
That alone is so significant. You lay it all out on a 1 or 0 defense noob, and you throw all 20 of it over to the big bad non-unique guy.
Has no defense with 2 hit points. Yeah. This is so great. I can't really say enough good things about it. It's a little higher cost than I might like, but that's just me having a first world problem here.
Yeah.
Instead of a Middle Earth problem.
MEPs.
But it's fantastic. This is such a utilitarian card, and it's cleave. I mean, you always want to just be able to smack a weenie and then immediately launch into somebody else. And this will really give Tactics a lot of versatility to deal with those weenies and still not really compromise their firepower for some of the heavy hitting guys.
Yeah, because I've seen that so many times. Like, I'm doing 6 to 10 damage, and I can either waste it on this guy or this guy. And if I could only just split the damage, it would be way easier, way better. I could clear all these guys out, and Firefoot lets you do that. Also note, Aomer gets +2 whenever a thing leaves play, right? Whenever
That's right.
an ally leaves play. So you put Firefoot on him, then you have something leave play, perhaps the Nath Scout, some bouncy stuff with Caliburn, and all of a sudden you're at +4 attack, and it splashes to a non-unique that you wanted to.
Aomer will avenge your guide.
That just feels great.
Thank you,
It
Aomer.
feels really great.
He loves those elves.
How about a close call?
Next up, close call. It is a Tactics event. It costs 0, has doomed X, and then reading response, cancel X damage just dealt to your hero.
This card is phenomenal.
Unbelievably good. Yeah, and this is much the same kind of reason that made what was that previous card, Swift and Silent, so interesting. Is there are a huge number of times where you're going to run into something that was just unexpected. You can't plan for it, and this can save you from having a cataclysmic event in your game.
Absolutely.
Because that hero is about to die, and I just can't afford that right now, or if ever.
Yeah.
And now I don't have to suffer those terrible consequences and just go buy a few threat.
There is nothing better to me in this game than zero-cost events.
Oh, yeah.
Just I have these whenever I need it. And this is the exact kind of event that you want to just have. It's like I might hold this all game, and it might only matter 1 out of every 3 games.
Sure.
But when it does,
but I've got it.
It will win you a quest that you would have just lost.
Totally.
So I think this is excellent. It's a great Doomed X is a cool way to deal with this. Just prevent that damage and take it in threat.
Yep.
I like it.
Now, sadly, Doomed is, of course, going to affect all the players, so that might kind of shift how ready you want to be to throw this out, because it might threat somebody out of the game. Who knows? But yeah, this is just unbelievably nice.
Yeah, totally. I'd rather throw it out than die.
Oh, sure. Oh no.
It's a pride thing.
I still haven't quite figured out what happens when you cap out on threat.
Man, I think the eye consumes you. I think you're just taken. You're in Mordor now.
If they just told me like you become a ring wraith or something, I would accept that.
And then you just like bring out your ring wraith deck.
Yeah, that's
and then
right.
You start playing against everyone else.
The other players. Oh my God, do that.
That'd be a cool idea.
Do that.
Please. Well, let's move on. We've seen this guy before. We've seen a few of these cards from the preview that we did a few weeks earlier. But this is a Blue Mountain Trader. We've had a bit of time to look at this guy and play around with him. He's 2 cost, 1 willpower, 0 attack, 1 defense. He's a trader. He's not doing much in combat. But he's got 1 defense because his horse can get in the way.
That's right.
No doubt.
Got a good meat shield right up front.
2 hit points, and the most important thing ever printed on this spirit card is that dwarf trait.
Dwarf.
Without a doubt. The action is choose another player. That player gains control of Blue Mountain Trader. Then that player moves 1 resource from the resource pool of a hero he controls to the resource pool of a hero you control, or Blue Mountain Trader is discarded. It's a great way to aggro out getting resources for you as well. Like your friends are like, man, I understand we can't afford to let this thing discard, but I don't want to give you a resource. And you're like, yeah, well, you got to. The card says it.
I've got dwarves.
I've got dwarves, man. It's really good. I on our preview video, a really insightful comment, which was that this is a good way to get another player to the 5 dwarf cap as well.
Totally.
So if you have your homeboy sitting
just
over
share.
At 4, then you just share the dwarf over there, and then they get their benefits maybe during the attack phase or whatever. And then you can pass them back over if you need to for me to get my benefits later on. So we can kind of share the dwarves and leverage the ability to run a dwarf deck. But this is a spirit dwarf who slots into a lot of spots that were occupied by less ideal cards in those decks to me.
I agree.
When this guy's really getting the juice, he's solid. His stats are good.
That's right, yeah. He's going to be able to hang with the boys.
The dwarf pluses.
The dwarves. All right, next up we have the Fall of Gilgul, which is a 1-cost spirit attachment. Song traded, which is music to a lot of spirit players' ears. Limit 1 per deck.
That's funny. That song is music to our ears.
Yeah, that's right. Pun intended, maybe. Maybe it wasn't, sadly. It wasn't that clever. And then it reads, limit 1 per deck, attached to a hero, then response. When attached hero is destroyed, add the Fall of Gilgul to the victory display to reduce your threat by X, where X is the attached hero's threat cost. Pretty solid.
This is a very interesting card, right?
Yeah.
It's like, when I'm thinking about the deck building process, am I going to put one of these in my deck? And it's like, probably, maybe. I don't really plan on a hero dying.
Yeah.
But then you got to think, like, are there those decks or situations where I'm at 49 threat and we're going to win this quest as long as we don't threat out.
Yep.
And I'm just going to pitch this on somebody and then throw them into the fire.
Yep.
Just let them die.
Yep.
And make it happen. And so there are instances where this is going to win you a quest that you would have threat out of. Because some of those quests, right? Like you
are crazy,
and it's not about having bodies and slaying things. It's about threat management completely.
Yeah,
so
I just need a little bit of time here.
Yeah, it's like we've got all the enemies taken care of. We've got all the locations explored. No big deal. But like we're getting a ton of doomed cards and weird doomed effects, and maybe just throw this on a guy and ace him.
Yeah,
and then
exactly
let it be done. Spirit does have this weird sub theme of like if a hero dies, it's okay. Like we have ways to make that less bad for you.
Yeah, totally.
Even pulling heroes back in that have died, and like that dwarf that comes into play after a hero's destroyed.
Right.
So maybe there's a sub theme there of like hero murder.
Figure it out.
I don't know. The ultimate spirit play is just
can you imagine if
heroes.
you just start like allowing your own heroes to just die, and it's like, but
saying.
look at this, now I'm in secrecy. That might not be a bad idea.
It could be a thing.
You pack 3 heroes, and you take one of them that's super high threat, allow them to die for Fall of Gilgul. All this other stuff starts triggering in, and so now you just dropped by whatever the nice chunk of threat you had was.
Oh, that's true.
That kind of stuff. I don't know if that's an actual thing, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. Especially if you have ways to search out songs. Like, you can make that consistent where you could probably lose your hero at the first turn consistently.
And you can totally search out songs, and songs mesh well with each other, especially
that's
with
quite interesting. And then you reduce your threat by like 11 if it's an 11 threat hero.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're in secrecy. So you would have to get a really good start of the game effect from that hero, like in Andromeda of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You draw 10 cards as your starting hand, and then kill this thing. Go down to secrecy.
That's entirely correct.
Keep an eye on that, guys.
Keep an eye on it.
That's a thing. We'll be keeping an eye on it. What is the Fall of Gilgul, by the way? Are you hip?
I'm very hip. The Fall of Gilgul, that was so at the start of the first Lord of the Rings movie, Fellowship, you get a nice prologue, and they show about the big fight against Sauron, and there were 2 principal guys who died at that fight. One was Gilgalad, who was the Elven King, and it's essentially a song talking about how he died and how sad and tragic and all that kind of stuff.
Because we elves, we don't die except by meddling.
That's right.
Let's talk about the Ithilien Lookout. This is a 3-cost, 1 willpower, 2 attack, 0 defense, 2 hit points. Gondor Ranger with Secrecy 2. So if you're in Secrecy, this guy costs 1, which is just absurd.
Yes, please. I'll pay 1.
Especially given the amazing art that he has, but more importantly, the response. After he enters play, you look at the top card of the encounter deck. If it's an enemy, you can discard it.
I love this.
It's just exactly what lore wants to do.
Not only is this a pretty fantastic ally for its cost, I mean, especially if it's 1, but this is really one of the first times we've seen well, not one of the first times, in the top 5 at least times we've seen a truly potent effect out of lore that manipulates the encounter deck. Because early on and up until recently, really, it was kind of like, you're doing a little.
You're kind of doing it, but it's not really worth it.
Yes. Is it worth the investment? Ultimately, I would have come down with maybe to no. This is a definitive yes. Even at 3 cost, I would be willing to take this because it's like, oh, just sneak a peek. Oh, that's a big old fat hill troll. See you later.
See you
Don't
later.
need that. Don't need it. Discard.
I love it, man. Yeah, this is just the juice. This is exactly what they needed. Probably best character I've seen for lore in ages.
And thank God it doesn't have 1 hit point.
Yes. Yeah, he's a ranger, man. He's got Gondor and Ranger traits, both of which can easily be manipulated in certain decks. So I think that guy's just great on all fronts. From art to cost to secrecy to response to traits.
What's not to love?
You gotta love this guy. And 2 attack, man.
2 attackies.
That's real.
It's very real. All right, next up, probably my favorite card of this pack, the more I think about it, is the Tree People, which is a 0-cost lore event. Reading, action! Return a Sylvan ally you control to your hand to search the top 5 cards of your deck for a Sylvan ally. Put that ally into play and shuffle the other cards back into your deck. You can only play 1 copy of the Tree People each phase.
Each phase.
Which is
not
very
round.
frequent. Yeah, phase. So look at this. We have a way of not only getting some bouncy boomerang effects going on so you can keep them going on, but you also get a really nice way of circumventing some of the former high-costed Sylvan play costs. So you can get, Haldir right into play. Because Haldir costs 4. That's pretty expensive.
Man, it's so good.
And we very well may see more, 4+ cost Sylvan guys coming out of this cycle. But there are certainly plenty of 3 cost already. So if you can pay nothing and get a 3-cost character into play, trigger characters like Caliburn, because whenever a Sylvan enters play, he's going to give them a buff. And then if that Sylvan character happens to be an 8th guide, it just starts snowballing very nicely.
Snowballs really hard. This also, to me, I find it interesting because it gets around spheres. Right?
Yeah, totally.
It's any Sylvan ally, so you don't even have to be running. You could have...
Very good point.
Like, I'm thinking about... So Spirit has a lot of ways to replay events from the discard pile or put them back in the deck. So you could realistically see a deck that's like 1 lore, maybe a Spirit and something else, or 2 Spirit or something like that, or Elrond or whatever. And it's going to have cards in its hand that it can't play, but it discards them or finds a way to get them in the discard pile. And then it plays things out of the deck that they can't normally play. Like you play all these tactics, Sylvan stuff or whatever. It could be a really interesting deck, and you just keep cycling and keep cycling.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Getting things in that way, kind of cheating things in. We know in any game, cheating things in past their cost is always super strong.
Yeah.
And then when you have effects that are working off things bouncing in and out, this is just, I mean, it's a Sylvan deck that we're going to see.
Yep.
Like it's fantastic. And if you look really hard at that card, it is one of the coolest scenes in Lord of the Rings that I have yet
really
seen.
is.
With that windy road going into there, and you start seeing all those houses and the trees, and you're just like, this is a place I want to visit. Like, if it was possible at all, to live, visit. But just like, I'm imagining myself as I am now.
This is a permanent residence.
Kind of just like taking this, and there's this little group of travelers, and they're taking this road, and it's like, this place is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
This is a place you could easily stay 2 or 3 months, and it only seemed like a week.
That's right.
Which actually happened.
Which is important.
Which is important.
Let's finish off with the White Council. Like we did take a look at this one during the preview as well. X is the number of players in the game, and X is the cost of this card. So it costs 3 if you have 3 players.
That's right.
Starting with the first player, each player chooses one different option. Ready a hero he controls. Add 1 resource to the resource pool of a hero he controls. Draw 1 card, or shuffle 1 card from his discard pile back into his deck.
I would like to draw a card, please.
It's very cool, right?
So it's super cool.
This is a good thing to do with extra resources. It's a good thing to pack in a deck that sometimes might otherwise waste resources because it is neutral. And it's always going to be welcome.
It's always welcome.
Always going to be welcome.
Sure.
Even just gaining a resource, gaining a card are 2 things that you always want, right? So then readying a hero is something you might want at the time, and then putting something back in your discard, from your discard to your deck, something you might want as well. You can always probably use the 4th one.
Yeah.
So like the only one that you can't always use is ready a hero, and even then you probably can.
Yeah.
Just to get a little more questing out of something, or to get a little more attack during the conflict phase or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Make sure somebody at the table is probably playing a couple of these, I would say.
If not 3. I mean, it's
not 3.
This is
how about we all play them?
Yeah, let's all play 3,
them?
and we're just going to have the best game of our lives. But this is such an amazing card for all the reasons you've already talked about. I really have a hard time imagining why you wouldn't want to run as many copies of this as you can, especially for the reason you said. It really soaks up resources that might otherwise not get used, because I certainly find myself sometimes in a situation where I need that Gandalf to come in so I can hard cast it, pay 5, and really get some utility out of resources that seem like they're piling up. And this just spreads that love all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's great. It really helps not only mechanically, but with just the kind of like mentality of playing as a team cooperatively. It's like, no, we're all in this, helping each other.
It does change the vibe
all that
of the
stuff.
game.
I love it.
I'm going to play the White Council. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks,
it's
man.
just the best thing
You mean you're
ever.
not just drawing 20 cards this turn? Thanks, Lore.
20 cards.
Thanks, Lord
Yes.
Dwarf. Okay, whoa, baby. So like we said, not a single bad card, bad in the sense of like just no questionable effectiveness cards.
Yeah, they're all just they have an immediate place in a lot of decks, and some of them an even brighter future.
And new archetypes starting to pop up.
Exactly. So that's the player cards.
Yeah.
You want to just kind of give a quick pass about our questing experience?
Yeah, let's talk about it. So we don't want to run down the encounter cards. We've decided that that's kind of detrimental to our purpose here in the unboxings, which is not to spoil anything. That is a big part of this game. It's kind of a story driven game, so we don't want to just be like, here's all the guys you're going to see. It's way more fun to come into it randomly, which is what we tend to do when we get the pack at the first pass.
What?
So this quest is difficult.
Very.
It's very difficult. I played it with you and Philip, and I consider you guys probably some of the best, Lord of the Rings players around. And the first time it was rough.
It just got smacked.
It was really rough. It's another one of those taking preconceived notions about what you might want and telling you that they're actually now bad. It's the greatest type of psychological warfare that you can commit to somebody.
Totally.
Where you take what used to be reward and positive thinking and turn it into, oh no, now that's killing me. And that's card draw in this quest in particular. What I found really fantastic about this quest was that it disincentivizes card draw, but only at very particular times. So you might have a board where it's like, if I draw a card right now,
Mm-hmm.
these 3 guys are going to get pluses to all their stats. This guy's going to make an attack,
Mm-hmm.
and then our threat's going to go up, and there's going to be 4 more threat in the account in the staging area. And it's like, that's the last thing that we want.
That's not what we want.
But then what I found was, because I was playing the lore side of things, was that once we would clear certain effects out, and there would be windows where we hadn't gotten new if you draw things are bad effects. And so there was this window where you could chain out all the card draw you could handle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, this is my time. It's like, everyone draw 2, everyone draw 2, everyone draw 1, everyone draw. It's like, you draw 3, Barivore, draw 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so we draw all these cards, and then it was like, okay, and then all these baddies would come out that disincentivize card draw again.
Yep.
So it makes you it makes the tempo of the game very different, and
It's kind of stop and go almost.
Yeah, and it gives you the ability to be a good player
Mm-hmm.
in those instances where you can hold back because resources don't expire. You can hold back and wait for what you feel as a player is the right moment to do your things,
Mm-hmm.
and then throw them out there. And you've got to manage the risk of like, everyone's only got like 3 cards right now. Is it worth it for me to raise the threat of this location by 4 to get everyone a card?
Yeah, totally.
And that's the decisions that I love to make in games, and so I feel like this quest gave me a lot of those decisions as the card draw guy.
Mm-hmm.
But you and Philip were doing more of the fighting. I know you
Right.
were doing more of the ranged and the sentinel kind of stuff. So how was it on the tactics ends of thing? I know there were some pretty tough enemies that were coming out.
Yeah, there's plenty of tough enemies, and you'll get a really quick sense of how they want to function and really upset your day. But what I liked about it in particular was because of the way they function, it kind of shifted the priority of how at least I wanted to play certain cards. Probably my favorite example in my deck is I have, what is that card called? Sneak Attack, of course. And I usually reserve it for a Gandalf because whenever he comes in play, you get a nice effect. But in this particular case, I didn't, not always have Gandalf, but I needed to take care of stuff that was in the staging area. So I found myself doing Sneak Attack with Descendants of Thorondor. That way I was clearing out some of these baddies who are going to come our way eventually, that were just going to be ridiculous with just too many Shadows cards and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, I cannot afford to reveal a half dozen Shadow cards on a single enemy. That's just, too much baggage that could upset anything that could possibly happen.
Yeah, the type of baddies, and that's what you're getting at, that the longer they stick around, just the worse they get.
Yeah.
So it incentivizes you getting rid of them quickly, and then until they're gone, you don't want to draw cards. So you really do have to strike a balance where it's like, we need to strike all at once, get this stuff done, draw all the cards, use all the effects that we can, and then prepare for the next round.
Totally.
That kind of thing. And I feel like when we fell into that rhythm was when we successfully completed the quest. But there was always the floundering of that first quest where it's just like, we just don't know what's coming down the pipe. And so you flip that to that second quest and you're like, I do what? But I played all of these cards for a reason. Or it's like, my hand goes where? Those kinds of moments. So there are some really cool like surprise moments, and just, I feel like a Lord of the Rings quest is really good whenever the first time you play it, you just feel abused. You were just not ready, and you played all your cards up front, and then everything was taken away from you, and then you kind of just fell down in the second and third stages, and then you redo it a few times, and you're like, yes, and you get the tempo, you get the timing, and you kind of understand how you're going to take this thing down.
Yeah, and I would so second everything you just said there, especially the part about not knowing what's coming. That made this playthrough experience like very interesting. Flavor meets mechanics was just a beautiful meld. I really enjoyed it. Probably one of the more enjoyables.
Me too. All right, guys, the Dunland Trap. It's daunting, but not as daunting as you might think. Super fun quest, and even if you never play this quest, which I don't know why you wouldn't do that, but the player cards themselves are worth it all. I mean, you've got some of the best art as always. It seems to constantly be improving, if that's even possible. But you have some absolutely killer, what I feel are almost foundational cards for every single sphere in this one pack. It's just a beautiful design on this one. Can't say enough about it. We do have that on our web store. If you're a Lord of the Rings subscriber, Robert's already sent that pack out to you. So enjoy the Dunland Trap whenever that arrives. And if you're not a subscriber, consider it, because it's really nice. And Lord of the Rings is kind of a more casual game. It's a more, you want to collect those quests and cards as they come out. And so maybe you're playing at home a lot. Maybe you just have a few friends, family members that you play with.
Got to quest them all.
You're not going to your local store to go get them. So we can just send that pack out to you, and you can help support what we're doing here with these videos and other types of content. and we'll be happy to take care of any concerns or needs that you have.
Very happy.
So thanks again for watching, guys. We really appreciate all the views, all the subscriptions, and you just, I don't know, you mean the world to us. So we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.